Look, in my mind, attracting investments, competitiveness of countries, competitiveness of businesses is so intertwined with corporate governance that for you to succeed in marketing the country or marketing a corporation, marketing an organization, if you succeed in demonstrating how effective the governance is in the country or in that enterprise, you will be able to secure the confidence of the stakeholders, the shareholders at large. The concept of board is very well known and understood by people in the region. The concept that to run a board effectively, you have to acquire certain skills and you have to introduce certain frameworks is new. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge is to get people to recognize that while you might be exceptional and well-intended as a director or as a chairman, there are set of framework and components and best practices that you and your management, you and your board, as well as the management team, need to embrace and recognize. There are good practices that will help you accelerate the effectiveness of the board, such as, recognizing the board composition, that it needs to be balanced with the right skills, the role of the independent directors, the role of boards evaluation, succession planning, role of the board in times of crisis, and the tools and the methodologies for it. In my mind, the biggest challenge is to help people recognize that, look, don't leave it to intuition. There are best practices, there are tools that will make you accelerate governance. We always say that when you are on a board of a corporation, you need to look after the interest of all the stakeholders and the shareholders. And I served as a chairman of the board of a company that is in the formation stage between my previous employer, Saudi Aramco, and Dow. And while you have always recognized that you need to look after the interest, it's only when you sit in that seat and you shake hand with the CEO of this partner and the CEO of this partner, and while you're employed by one of them, you recognize that you actually work for both of them. And making that mind shift for me was a very revealing experience for this joint venture. And you have to recognize that for you to be effective in that, you have to disengage from being an employee of one of the shareholders into managing a process of an effective board. So you switch from trying to advocate a certain interest to advocate a healthy process. It depends on the situation and how serious it is. I would immediately revert to an assessment. I like assessments. Assessments help you avoid any unrealistic conclusions, preconceived, leaving it to hearsay, and it is often seen as a neutral way of bringing in a fresh perspective. So if you do an assessment by a very reputable, highly competent organization that comes and assesses the team, assesses the board, and present you with that data, that will bring the quality of the discussion in a more objective manner, rather than you just saying, this is what I've heard and this is what I've seen. And so I would do assessment, number one. Board committees can be the best for you to get the best out of the board. Those, if you had somebody who's very passionate about innovation, or a director that is extremely passionate about talent development and human capital. Get the best out of them by handling some of those committees for you. But I think committees and special projects are the ideal for you to get the best out of all. In terms of understanding the business, understanding key aspects of the business, both on how value being created, how value being destroyed, on the financials, on the risks involved, getting ready for crisis. And the role of the chairman is to make sure that his board is very well prepped for this to the maximum extent, and that the management team is equally prepped for all these. Ideally, you want the director to be somebody who have had exposure to boards before, who have worked on providing support either as a staff or line management. You want to select directors who come from that, but that's not sufficient. You have to also provide directors with proper orientation and induction on board, role of boards, board effectiveness. It's your role as a chairman to make sure that it happens.